Utah just passed a law targeting VPNs. It impacts everybody, even outside of Utah, believe it or not. They somehow made that happen. It already went into effect, and it will probably backfire big time. Here's why this matters. I'll talk about how we got here, what this actually does and how it works behind the scenes, and we'll even get into the bill itself a little bit here. And of course, I'll zoom out and kind of express this concerning pattern that we're seeing all around the world and what we can do about it. We've seen this pattern pop up all around the world now where people want to age verify the internet to keep children safer. And I'll touch a little bit more on this concept at the end of the video. The unintended side effect that everybody warns all of these politicians about before they actually pass these laws is that it is very difficult to enforce this kind of thing. So Utah passed their age verification laws that target adult websites in 2023. And of course, as everybody could expect and everybody warned, some sites pulled out because it was too much of a privacy concern. And also people just simply went online and there was a notable spike in searches for how to get a VPN. Literally all things that anybody could have predicted, who was technical and was warning these politicians about this. And I want to be very clear that this law that's proposed is specifically targeting VPN. It's not even a secret. It's just like, hey, we passed this law. Rather than asking if there's something wrong with the law we passed and to ask if this concept of age verification worked, their goal now is just to target VPNs and act like they didn't do anything that was incorrect and just continue to keep going further and further down. The problem is that what they wrote here is also being called technically impossible. And we're going to get into why. Of course, the bill will always be in the description, but to just dive into my juiciest part of the bill here, we see this line here, which is an individual is considered to be accessing the website from this state, Utah, if the individual is actually located in the state, regardless of whether the individual is using a virtual private network, proxy server, or other means to disguise or misrepresent the individual's geographic location to make it appear that the individual is accessing a website from a location outside this state. This is crazy because to know if someone is physically in Utah while using a VPN, you would have to verify everyone. Here's how it works. We have hundreds of VPN IP addresses that are based out of something like San Jose in California or LA or Washington and Seattle. We have New York servers. Like we have all of this VPN infrastructure. And so if you're somebody, let's say you're listening to this and you're based out of Washington and you're connecting to a California-based IP address, which anybody can do, by the way, well, now the person that has liability is this adult website that is now being forced to guarantee that everybody is actually a Utah resident or not a Utah resident. Someone from the EFF said, even if you're well-intentioned and want to comply with this law, it's nearly impossible to do so. And actually, some people from Fight for the Future said the state was embarrassing itself with its first in the nation law and that the legislation sounded like AI slop. She questioned whether Utah lawmakers understand VPNs. This liability is now going to land on adult content websites who has to police Utah users by policing everybody along the way because they can't identify Utah users who are using a VPN. So again, the only safe way to actually comply with this law, even if they're well-intentioned, is to verify everyone, which means now everybody would be caught in this and everybody has to upload their ID to random websites, which is probably going to get caught in some data breach, like exactly what happened with Discord with in light of UK's age verification, even though they have nothing to do with Utah. Let me just read this out, okay? So this is written into the law, right? Like this is part of the law. A commercial entity, so a website that operates a website that contains a substantial portion of material harmful to minors may not facilitate or encourage the use of a virtual private network, proxy server, or other means to circumvent age verification requirements, including by providing instructions on how to use a virtual private network or proxy server to access the website. So this is, to me, a very clear possible First Amendment violation, right? This is a speech restriction. A website cannot legally explain what a VPN is or how it works in this context, which is a First Amendment problem. And no lawsuit's been filed yet, but I think Fight for the Future preemptively endorsed one in spirit. So I don't know how far that goes nowadays, but I guess I also, if anyone wants to go after this, I also preemptively endorse them as well. Now, here's where I get genuinely really angry. So I'm sorry in advance, but this is infuriating. So a bit of context, for the last 10 plus years I've been running this channel, we've seen these marketing terms pop up over the years. That's like something that's very catchy. It's meant to kind of imply safety, but it's nothing really. It's just reinventing the wheel. So a really good common example of this that most people have heard is military grade encryption. Your VPN sponsorships, it's got military grade encryption. Well, this VPN marketing was so strong that politicians fighting VPNs were inspired by it. So this Republican sponsor of the law, Mr. Musselman, said websites could with a C, have a process for users to verify their age or confirm which state they're in, while still preserving the encryption options for users. Again, keep in mind, this is in light of a VPN ban, and this person is saying, we're going to preserve the encryption options for users. I actually have no idea what he's talking about. This is clearly somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. So some things that he could be referring to, if I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, when you connect to a website, in fact, right here in my browser, this website, the connection is secure. We are used to seeing that padlock icon. This is because there is a certificate on the site, which is called an SSL certificate. And this is what you would normally see in the URL as HTTPS instead of just HTTP. That is encrypting pretty much the connection between you and the website so that nobody can easily look inside what's going on there. So this is a really important part of the internet, but almost 100% of websites use this nowadays. The problem here is that when you collect someone's ID, if I'm a website operator, obviously I'm going to have an SSL certificate for preserving encryption options, as Musselman would say. But the problem is once someone uploads their ID to me, I am now liable for that data on my servers. That doesn't mean that I have encryption on my servers. That doesn't mean there's encryption with the data at rest. It also doesn't mean that I can't see it. That means me and all of the employees at my company could potentially see that data as well. And if I don't want all that liability, which I think is super valid, and I probably wouldn't if I was in this situation, I would probably hire a third-party company to handle this for me and offload that responsibility to them instead. And this is exactly what's happened in Discord in the UK, because the UK passed age verification laws. People uploaded their ID to Discord, and there was a massive data breach, which also swept up minors into that as well. So this is really concerning because this is someone who clearly doesn't understand the technical information, and they're just saying it'll preserve the encryption options, which I think what he's referring to is HTTPS on websites. If only people who access those websites could get military-grade encryption with their VPNs. I'm joking, but it's frustrating for me. I want to zoom out a little bit here and speak about this broader pattern, share some actionable takeaways, and also some more of my thoughts on this. This is the exact pattern that I have kind of been teasing and I've been talking about for the last 6+ months, which is these age verification laws are being passed for sometimes good intentions. Like we want children to be safe on the internet, but they have a few fundamental problems. First of which is there's very little evidence to show these things even work. Australia right now is the biggest example. They tried banning social media platforms to children, and we're already seeing that people are getting around it. It's not really changing much. It's not doing very much, and it's actually making the internet worse for everybody, right? Because now we're gatekeeping information. We're making it harder to access websites. We're discouraging kids from learning how the internet works as well along the way. The other problem with this is the obvious privacy concerns. If we're just having every website on the internet start to collect user IDs and they're now liable for it, there's a lot of problems that come along with that. Like if someone suffers a data breach like Discord, who's liable? Is it Discord? Was it the third-party person? Is it the government for mandating that in the first place? This is very messy stuff, and nobody really wants to answer those hard questions, but they still pass these laws nonetheless. The last problem is that all of those things I said imply these things even work. It implies that tools like VPNs don't exist. It implies that people don't just ask their parents to let them access the service anyway. And so what I would personally propose, because what's going to happen, it's going to keep happening, is age verification laws get passed, people get around them, so the laws don't work, and then they're going to target the tools that people are using to get around them, like VPNs. But when they block VPNs, they're going to start using Tor. And then when they block Tor, people are going to find something else. This is a ridiculous way of trying to actually control the internet in a positive way. These age verification laws have so many downstream consequences that have nothing to do with the original intentions. And this should be quite concerning regardless of what you think about those original age verification laws, because now the most targeted thing isn't even children being safe anymore. It's just VPNs that everybody's using. It's crazy. So you might be listening to this and going, all right, Henry, that's quite idealistic of you. What are you really proposing? So these are things that we've been talking about for years. We've been pushing for a healthier internet for years, over a decade now. What this looks like, right, in my view, and the way that we can actually see how this works is we see alternatives to these, let's say, harmful providers. And I think social media is a really good example of this. We look at something like Facebook. Facebook has algorithms. It's designed to keep you on the platform as long as possible. They use a mountain of data of everything you do in the app, everywhere you tap. They implement dark patterns to make it hard for you to opt out of these things, to find the privacy settings, to actually take control of your own experience on Facebook. TikTok took this, added cocaine on every part of that process and now has addicted the entire world to their screens in a way nobody's ever done before. This is biohacking. This is a legitimate thing these companies are doing. They've now been literally found in court to do this to children. Now, we see some alternatives that have come up over the years, and this happens with privacy tools all across the board. We have the typical way email works, and then we have private email providers. We have the way that a typical ISP collects data, and then we have the way VPNs do it. We have the way that Facebook functions, and then we have the way that something like Mastodon functions. And I think this is what we need to think about when we're actually trying to create a safer environment for children and everybody, right? Because when we actually try to hold Facebook accountable and change the way the platform works, it keeps everybody safer as a result. But that requires real work as a politician. That requires actually holding companies accountable. That involves actually going against one of the largest lobbying forces in the country, which is Facebook, and actually holding these companies accountable for all the exploitation that they're doing against children. Again, that's been found in court. That is not me inserting bias or opinion. That is a fact. So rather than us trying to do something about these companies that are genuinely exploiting children, we're just keeping children off the platforms altogether and punishing them instead. And what that's also signaling to everybody is, well, once they're 18, then all these platforms are fine. As if the whole voting population isn't directly influenced by these platforms as well, and they're not a problem for adults too. So I would propose more systemic changes that we really need to target these platforms and the things that they're doing to influence everybody, not just children, in really negative ways. So I have 3 actionable things all of you can do watching this video to kind of get started. The first thing, we have a VPN finder on our site. It is just open public data. A lot of these top services at the top here are open source. You can even just filter by open source if you just want an open source VPN. If you're not already using a VPN, that is a good place to get started. We do have a Proton VPN affiliate link that I'll leave in the description. That's a pretty safe, beginner-friendly recommendation that is open source and very privacy respecting. That affiliate link is down in the description. But again, using any VPN is a good way to pretty much signal to everybody that, hey, these are legitimate tools. VPNs have real-world implications. They do help privacy, not as much as sometimes they claim. But again, a lot of these top services, you can sort by honest marketing here. So there are services that do, in my view, have honest marketing. But it's just really important that we use these tools, normalize them, and we don't associate them with all these negative things that politicians are trying to impose that they're doing, that they're really not. These are ultimately privacy tools. The second thing that you should do, which nobody likes to hear because I get comments from you saying, why is the matter? What's the point? Contact your representatives. I promise you this makes a difference. We've seen it make a difference. We've seen other crazy VPN bans try to be passed, which we literally made content on as well, I think in Wisconsin. So we'll leave a card for that if you want to see that as well. But in that situation, it didn't end up working out. They heard from a lot of people. They pretty much had to listen at some point. And so please contact your reps, especially if you're in Utah. You have the most amount of power here. Contact your representatives in Utah. It makes a difference. The third thing that you can do, make noise about this. You don't have to be in Utah. This impacts everybody, right? So share this on socials. A lot of people don't follow this news and they don't care about these kind of things because they don't understand why it impacts them. If you think this video is a good way to communicate that to people around you, then you can share this video. If you think that one of the articles in the description is a good way to do it, then great. If your friend is a lawyer, then maybe just send them the PDF itself, right? So whatever you can do to share this around and get your network a little bit more involved in this, the better. And actually, we just did another video recently about some countries that are trying to do age verification on your entire phone so that your entire phone needs to be age verified. So check out that if you want to learn more, and I'll see you all next time on Techlore. Let me know what you think in the comments.